youth group, I apologize for saying a long, long time ago because that makes us both old. But I would go every year to a nationwide youth ministers conference, it was really great. I had a good time there. Saw a lot of, ministry friends, and also, picked up a lot of information to use in ministry and stuff. But there was one particular year that I went, and I, they would have these breakout classes, and they had these like keynote speakers and stuff. And there's one particular keynote speaker, was speaking this one time, and he got up and kind of small talk for a little bit, and then he told a story, and it comes from Scripture. You find it in the book of Ezra, in Ezra chapter 9, and I'm going to preface it just so you know. I'm not going to give you the whole story, but just kind of give you the context of what he was talking about. But in the book of Ezra, the Israelite people had just gotten out of 70 years of captivity. They had, for generations before, had worshipped other gods and done awful things to each other, to other nations, and God, kept warning them again and again. There's going to be consequences, and finally, He allowed the Babylonian Empire to come in and take over and basically destroy the nation of Judah, God's people, and take thousands of them captive to Babylon. And then when the Persian Empire came along, those people, at least a group of them, were allowed to come back to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple that had been destroyed and start to rebuild the nation of Israel once again. One of the things that God was upset at his people for back at that time was them marrying people who weren't Israelites. They had these other nations living around them, Moabites, Ammonites, all these other different nations. And one of the things that God wanted his people was to the Israelites to marry Israelites, not because the other people had like cooties or anything, but because he was convinced, and he was right, that if they married these other people from these other nations, they would start to do the things that these other nations did. They would start to worship their gods and adopt their cultures and practices, which were ungodly things. Everybody with me? Okay. So they have been in captivity for 70 years because they have been doing ungodly things and worshiping other gods, right? Ezra comes along after this group has come back to start rebuilding the temple. Ezra comes along to help oversee this. Ezra was a priest, and he's making sure that they're getting the specifications right and things like that. And one of the first things that happens when Ezra shows up is he finds out that all these people who have come back, who God has allowed to come back and start rebuilding the nation once again, whose parents and grandparents caused the nation to go into captivity in the first place because of intermarrying with other people. These guys have now come back to have freedom once again, and they have started to marry women from other nations. They have already started down the path that got them in trouble in the first place. And when Ezra shows up to check on the temple, that's one of the first things that he's told. Hey, some of these guys are starting to marry these women from other nations again. And so, going back to the Youth Ministers Conference, this guest speaker kind of sets the context, and then he talks about Ezra's reaction to that. In Ezra chapter, you can look at it yourselves, it's not going to be on the screen, in Ezra chapter 9, in verses 3 and 4, when Ezra is told that the people who have come back to reestablish a connection with God and reestablish his nation again are already doing very ungodly things. Scripture tells us that Ezra tore his clothes, pulled out his hair, pulled the hair out of his beard, and sat appalled. One translation says it. Sat appalled. Like sat dumbfounded, in awe. All day. Until the sun went down. Now, there's several hundred of us sitting in this hotel banquet room, and this guy stands up there and he's telling us this story. And I had the same reaction that probably some of you are having right now, like, okay, what's the point? And he tells that story, and I had never really paid attention to that verse before. And he says, here's Ezra sitting completely appalled, just mouth open, just, And he stopped for a second, and then he just looked at a room full of full-time youth ministers and said, when was the last time that you sat appalled because of what was going on in your community, in your culture, the things that your teens are dealing with? And it was a really poignant moment for me. And I share that with you this morning. Honestly, I couldn't tell you the rest of what he talked about that day. I have no idea. But that particular story and that question has stuck with me. Now, I'm not saying that I have ever sat in my office back here at Flagstone just with my mouth open, stunned all day long. I don't think I've done that. But what he was really saying was, when was the last time that you were truly moved by what was going on in the world around you? Not necessarily in disappointment or judgment and look how awful the choices these people are making, or our government, or whatever else. Just to be moved, emotionally moved by what is happening in the lives of the people around you. When was the last time that you allowed yourself to be moved that way? And it's kind of the question that I want us to start out asking ourselves this morning. How much do I allow myself to be moved, for my heart to be moved by what's going on, not just in my life, and not just in the lives of the people that I care about and I know really well, but just in the lives of my coworkers and my neighbors in our community? If there's things that are happening, if there's burdens that are taking place, if there's struggles that are going on, does that even faze me at all? Is my heart moved by those things? Now, we started last week talking about having a heart check. And not a physical heart check, but looking at our hearts, looking at what things we value most, the things that are most important to us, the things that we have the most devotion for, the things that we get most enthusiastic about, and just being honest, first of all, about what those things are. And then second of all, do we have a heart for the things that matter to God? He has a heart for several things. Do we have a heart for those things as well? What does our heart look like compared to his? And we recognized, if you forgot, or in case you weren't here last week, we recognized that all of us have a heart for something. There are things that are important to all of us, and they may not all be the same, but we all have a heart for something. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 21, where your treasure is, that's where your heart's going to be. The things that I value most, and the things that I focus the most time and attention and energy and effort towards, those are the things that I would sacrifice anything for. Those are the things that I hold on to, that I treasure. Those are the things that mean the most to me. Those are the things I have a heart for. Some of those things, we acknowledged last week, can be positive. Those can be really good things. Some of them may be hurtful, maybe even destructive. But there are things that all of us have in our lives, and people that all of us have in our lives, that are important to us, that we're passionate about, that we value above everything else. We also talked about the fact that it's not wrong to have a heart for several things. We can have a heart for a lot of different things and be passionate about a lot of different things, and that's fine. There's a lot of things that can be important to us. But again, just asking ourselves the question, do I value the things that truly matter the most? Do I value the things that God values? Do the things that matter to me also matter to him? Do the things that matter to him even mean anything to me? And so last week we asked ourselves the question, do I have a heart for God? I mean, that's kind of where we started. That was kind of our foundational question. As I'm looking at the things that matter most to me, does he matter most to me? Before I even answer the question, do the things that matter to him matter to me? The first question I have to answer is, does he matter to me? We acknowledge, and Scott even mentioned in his community thoughts this morning, we matter to him. He is passionate about us. He loved us so much that he sent his one and only son to die on the cross. Whether we choose to buy into that and give our lives to that or not, he sacrificed for us anyway, because we matter that much to him. Does he matter that much to us? That's the question we asked last week. So we asked a new question this week as we're doing this heart check. And we're asking ourselves, what are the things that are important to me? And the question that I want us to kind of wrestle with this morning is, do I have a heart for people? Do other people matter to me? And there would be some of us that immediately go, well, yeah, there's people that matter to me. My family matters to me. My spouse matters to me. My kids, my parents. I got good friends. I got my BFF. Do people still use the term BFF? I don't even know if that's a relevant term anymore. But, I got people that matter to me. There's people in my life that I value. There's people in my life that mean something to me. Not everybody. But do people matter to me? I guess maybe I give us a little bit clearer picture of the question I'm asking myself. I want us to ask ourselves this morning, do I have a heart? I guess I'm kind of looking at two different categories of people. Do I have a heart for people in need? And not just like people who are standing on the street corners, asking for money, but people in my life, people that I come into contact with on a regular basis, my coworkers, my neighbors. Do I recognize when there is a need in their life? Does that move me at all? When someone is having emotional struggles, relationship issues, physical problems, when someone is feeling lonely, when someone is feeling burdened, financial issues, do I see that? Is my heart moved when I recognize that need in that other person? Do they mean enough to me that I want to do something about that I want to help, I want to serve, I want to do something, I want to go out of my way to bless them in some way if I possibly can? Do I have a heart for people? Do I value other people? And again, some of us would say, yeah, some people. And I want to challenge us to look beyond just the people that we're friends with, the people that we're connected to. What about the people that you don't know very well? What about even total strangers? What about the people that you can't stand? Do you have a heart for them? Do I have a heart for those kind of people in my life? Not just, I'm not going to be mean to them or be dismissive of them. Do I have a heart for them? Do I value them? Do I want to do something to bless them? And then the second question is, do I have a heart for people who don't know Jesus? Do I have a heart for people, whether, again, a coworker, even a family member, a friend of mine who doesn't have a relationship with Jesus and maybe never has? And they don't know what it's like to ask Jesus to be the Lord of their life. They don't know what it's like to repent of their sins and to make changes in their lives. They don't know what it's like to be baptized into His blood and have their sins completely washed away. They don't know what it's like to have His Spirit living inside of them. They haven't experienced that. Does that affect my heart at all? Do I have a heart for people who don't know Jesus? Do I have a heart for people who don't have a church family to connect with? Who don't have people who have not only a faith in Jesus, but a faith in the connection and love for each other? And there's so many people that need that kind of connection in their lives. Does that even affect me at all? What about people who maybe had that relationship with Jesus in the past and don't anymore? Maybe people who have been hurt by the church and hurt by Christians and don't have very positive things to say about us because we wear the name of Jesus. Do I have a heart for them? Or am I more resentful of them? Am I critical of them because they're critical of me? Or do I value them? Am I passionate about them? You see the question I'm asking? Do I have a heart for people? And by the way, if you're sitting in this room this morning, or if you're watching online, and you haven't given your life to Jesus, or maybe you did at one time and you walked away from it, please know that our God has a heart for you. And this church family does too. And I just want to say that. I want you to know that to be true. But as we challenge each other as a church family, I want us to recognize that we are called, we are challenged by God to have a heart for people. We talked last week about Mark chapter 12. You can turn there if you want to. This verse is going to be up on your screen in just a second. But in Mark chapter 12, Jesus has asked the question, of all the commandments in all of Scripture, what's the best one? What's the greatest one? What's the one that carries the most weight? Do you remember what we said last week? From Mark chapter 12 and verse 30, Jesus says, love the Lord your God. Greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. We talked about that last week. So if you missed it, I encourage you to go back on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page and watch that. Because we're talking about, these different categories. With my thoughts, with my heart, with my strength, with the things I do, I pour all of that into my love for God. I value him because he values me. But Jesus doesn't just stop with love for God, because the very next verse, he says, here's the second most important. If it's 1-2 or maybe 1 and 1a. Love God. And then he says in Mark chapter 12, verse 31, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love the people around you as yourself. I need to care about you at least as much as I care about me. I need to be willing to meet your needs as much as I'm willing to meet my own. So if I'm hungry, what do? I go find something to eat. If I'm cold, I go find some way to get warm. If I'm sick, if I'm hurting, I go find somewhere I go to the doctor. I go find somewhere to get some healing, right? I do those things for myself. And Jesus says, I need to be as passionate about doing those things for you as I am for me. That when you're hungry, I try to find a way to feed you. When you're cold, I'm going to try to find some way to get you to a warm place. When you're hurting, I'm going to try to help you find healing. I value you that much. You are that important to me. I am called. Folks, we are called. We are challenged by our God to have a heart for people. And here's the thing. Here's the truth. The more that I have a heart for people in need, the more likely I am to actually take action to try to help. The more that I have a heart for people who don't have a relationship with Jesus, the more likely I am to share my own faith, to share my story, or at least to invite them to come experience it for themselves, whether that's here at church or a connection group or something else. But the question comes back to how much do I care? How much do I have a heart for other people? So I got to thinking, I think we would all like to think that we have a heart for other people. I mean, I don't think any of us are going, I don't have a heart for people at all. I only care about me. I don't think we all feel that way. I hope not anyway. But if I'm being truly introspective, I'm truly just, being honest with myself and trying to recognize how much do I truly care about and value other people, not just my circle that I'm most comfortable with, but just other people that I interact with on a daily basis. How much do I have a heart for them? The question that I wrestle with is, I recognize there's some people that I probably don't have a heart for. But why is that? What keeps me from valuing other people? What keeps me from having a heart for somebody else? And if we started coming with a list of why we struggle with that sometimes, why we struggle with having a heart for certain people, I bet we could come up with a long grocery list of reasons why. I want to give you a few that I think most of us have in common this morning. And maybe you decide if this is something that you struggle with as well. I think one thing that we struggle with in having a heart for other people is our own self-centeredness. I mean, some might even use the term narcissism, but nobody likes to consider themselves to be a narcissist, right? We become self-centered, we become self-focused. I become the center of attention in my life. I'm focused on me, and I'm so focused and so concerned about what's going on in my life and what is happening with my time and my comfort zone that I either don't see what's going on in the lives of other people around me, or I just choose to ignore it. Because I've got enough going on in my own life right now. And most of us, myself included, would not like to admit that self-centeredness is a problem. I don't want to say that, even though that might be the reality. I'll confess to you, this is part of my problem. I get really focused on me. I think it's a common problem for a lot of us. Jesus talked about this in a story in Luke chapter 10 that a lot of us are familiar with. It's a story that we normally call the Good Samaritan. He talks about this guy who's walking down the road, and back in ancient culture, it happened a lot. You're walking down the road and somebody just comes out from behind a bunch of rocks or some bushes and jumps on you and beats you up. And that happened to this guy. Some robbers came and attacked him, beat him up, left him for dead, beat him within an inch of his life, left him for dead, took all of his stuff. And as he's laying there in the road, waiting for help or waiting to die, there's different people that still come by this normally traveled road. The first guy that Jesus describes as a priest, which we would probably label as like a church leader, maybe a preacher, maybe an elder, somebody like that. And he sees the man laying there and he walks on, goes around him and keeps going on down the road, doesn't do anything to help. Next guy that comes by is a Levite, probably not as in the hierarchy of the Jewish culture of the day, not as high as a priest, but like it would be like your churchgoer. He shows up for church a lot. He's a good person. Sees a guy laying there beaten up on the side of the road. He goes by on the other side, doesn't do anything to help. The next guy that comes up is a Samaritan. The Jews hated the Samaritans. The Jews thought that the Samaritans were just the dogs of the earth, just awful people, just inherently evil people that God didn't even love. And in Jesus' story, the Samaritan stops. He sees this guy, he stops. He binds up his wounds as the best that he can. And he puts him on his donkey. He takes him to the closest town, to an inn, and does everything he can to nurse him back to health. And then leaves extra money with the innkeeper. Hey, keep taking care of him. And if it costs more, I'll come back by and I'll pay more. He doesn't even know this guy. And this guy, if they met on a regular day in a regular place, would probably hate the Samaritan. Yet the Samaritan did all this for him. Why? Well, in this story, the Samaritan had heart for people. What I want to do is draw your attention back to the priest and the Levite. Now, there were Jewish rules and Jewish laws, and if you touched a dead body, you would be unclean. You had to go through a whole ceremonial process to get clean again by the end of the day. And so maybe they were worried about that. Maybe they were worried about, they had somewhere to be. Maybe they needed to get somewhere. I got to go. I got places to be. I can't take the time right now. This guy's probably going to die anyway. He might even be dead. I'm just going to keep going. They may be feared for their own safety. Somebody beat up this guy. Those people may still be here. I'm going to keep moving. I don't know the motivation. I want you to see something in this story, though, that I think we overlook. It says in Luke chapter 10, beginning verse 31, a priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. And so too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. Key word there for both of them. What did they do when they came upon this man? They saw him. It's not like the guy was laying there and they just happened to be going down the road and he was kind of tucked off to the side of the road, maybe down a ditch, maybe behind some bushes, and they didn't even see him. They saw him. Their eyes met his, or they at least saw his body laying there. And their immediate reaction for both of them was to go around and keep moving. Why? Because even though they saw him, they weren't focused on him. What were they focused on? Themselves. See, I can become so self-focused and self-centered that even when I see the needs of people around me, I don't see the needs of people around me. Does that make sense? I don't focus on it. I don't recognize not only that somebody needs my help or needs me to reach out to them or needs me to share my faith, I don't even focus on that because I got other stuff going on. Another reason that we may not have a heart for people is probably connected to self-centeredness, but a little bit different, is just apathy. I just don't care. And again, that sounds really cold, and I think most of us would be like, that's kind of harsh. It's not that I don't care. I just don't care enough. That's still apathy. I mean, that's what apathy is all about. I see something, I recognize the need. I might even focus on it, but I'm not moved enough. I don't care enough to do anything about it. I recognize that somebody might need help. I recognize that I have an opportunity right here to invite somebody to church with me. That I have an opportunity to invite somebody to my connection group. That I have an opportunity to invite somebody to an event. But I just don't care. I don't care enough. I'm not moved enough to take action. And that's a harsh truth, but for some of us, it's a reality. And it's not that I'm necessarily completely devoid of compassion and concern for other people. I just don't care enough about other people, or at least the people outside of my circle. And it happens to us so easily. I mean, there's a story of Jesus, and it's told in all four of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that all talk about the life of Jesus on this earth. All four of those guys talk about this particular story where Jesus is teaching hundreds, thousands of people all day long. And they get to the end of the day, and I mean, haven't had anything to eat yet. Jesus has been preaching nonstop. And his disciples come up to him. In Mark chapter 6, we'll look at Mark's version. In Mark chapter 6, his disciples come up to him and they say, send these people away. Verse 36, send the people away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. Now, you need to understand, there's thousands of people listening to Jesus. He's answering questions. He's talking to them about how to change their lives. He's talking to them about how God feels about them and how they can react to him and live for him in ways that they never heard of before. And these people desperately need to experience that. They desperately need to hear that. And the disciples are hungry. And they're tired. But here's these people whose lives need to change. Here's these people who are being connected with in ways that no religious leaders have ever connected with them before. I don't care. I'm hungry. Send them home. And if you're like me, then you would think to yourself, I wouldn't be one of those disciples. I mean, Peter, Thomas, sure, one of those guys probably, not me. It's the disciples who are supposed to be compassionate and caring and as passionate about the truth that's being shared as Jesus is as he's sharing it. But they don't care. Not in that moment. Yeah, I think there's a lot of us that struggle with that too. We're not cold-hearted people who have no compassion and no empathy. We just don't care enough. At least not about everybody. And it keeps us from having a true heart for people. The other thing that I think keeps us from having a heart for people, I'm calling it this, is truly a lack of faith. A lack of faith. And what I mean by that is there's some of us that may consciously or subconsciously think to ourselves, I don't believe that my taking action will actually make a difference. I don't believe that God is actually giving me this opportunity to help or to serve or to bless somebody in some way. I don't believe that if I do something, it's actually going to make a difference in their lives or that he can make a difference through me. I don't necessarily believe that God wants me to help in this particular way. And whatever it is, it's a lack of faith that keeps me from actually having a heart for other people. That's the way James describes it. In James chapter 2, he gives kind of the scenario of finding somebody who is cold and hungry and a Christian walking up to this person and seeing them cold and hungry and kind of patting them on the back and going, hey, man, I hope you find some food and some shelter. Have a good day. And walking off. And James says, he's talking at it like it's a common thing. Folks, let's be honest, sometimes it is. But James doesn't say that's a lack of compassion. James says that's a lack of faith. He says in verse 19 of James chapter 2, show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by what? What I do. When I believe in God so much, and I believe in his faith in me to make a difference in somebody else's life so much, that will cause me to have a heart for other people. Because I believe so much that God can make a difference in their life through me. And it's not about me, it's about him. and what he can do to bless them, what he can do to change their lives, and what he can do to use me in that process. And if I don't believe that, then I'm not going to take any action towards that. Does that make sense? If I don't believe in him, or if I don't believe in his power to use me to bless somebody else, then I'm not going to take any action to bless somebody else. It's a lack of faith that causes me to have lack of a heart for other people. And the list could go on. Well, these are some of the things I think are most common for a lot of us. So I ask ourselves this question again this morning. Do I have a heart for people? Do I have a heart for people? Or am I too self-centered? Am I too apathetic? Is my faith not strong enough? If I don't have, if just in my own personal wrestling with that question, if I feel I don't really have a heart for people, or at least one that I could have, if other people, if I don't value them the way that I think that maybe God is leading me to, what do I do about that? How do I develop more of a heart for people? How do I develop more of a passion to serve and to share my faith and to invite and to connect with other people? Let me give you some ways to get started, and I'll do this real quick. First thing, same thing that we said last week. First thing I need to do is pray about it. You need to ask God for a heart for people. God, I don't feel like I'm very compassionate. I don't feel like I'm really opening my eyes to see what's going on in the lives of people around me. I don't feel like I'm moved to help when I'm given the opportunity to help. Give me that heart, God. I want to have a heart for people. I want to be compassionate. I want to care. I want to be moved. So move me, God. The promise from Jesus in Matthew chapter 7 and verse 7 is this: ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you'll find. Knock and the door will be open. Just ask. Ask the God who cares about people, who has a heart for people, to give you a heart for people. That's where we start. Pray about it. Pray about it every day. God, please give me a heart for people. Second thing is, I need to pay attention. I need to open my eyes and pay attention to what's going on in the lives of people around me. I need to notice when they're hurting. I need to notice when they're struggling. I need to see it when they need just a shoulder to lean on. I need to see it when they need some help. I need to see when there's an opportunity, when I recognize this is a good opportunity for me to share with them about what God has done in my life. I need to pay attention. There's another story. I'm harping on Jesus' disciples today, but there's another story of Jesus interacting with this woman in John chapter 4 who's had just a horrible life of horrible choices, especially in her relationships. She's gone from man to man to man to man and is feeling completely destitute and alone. And Jesus kind of confronts her about that, but also connects with her. And by the time she's done having a conversation with Jesus, she's convinced not only that he's the Messiah, he's the chosen one, but that he can make a difference in her life and the rest of the lives of the people in the town that she lives in. And she leaves Jesus where he's sitting, and she goes running back to town to try and knock on doors and tell everybody, I think I've found the one that can change all of our lives. While he's having this conversation with her before she takes off, his disciples who had left to go find food, again, I guess they were hungry, but they go find food and they come back to Jesus. And when they come to him, they see him talking to this woman. And it's one of these situations where he shouldn't be talking to a woman in public. Plus, she's a Samaritan. We've already talked about Samaritans this morning. He shouldn't be talking to a Samaritan, shouldn't be having anything to do with her, but nobody wants to say anything about it. And then she takes off running back to town, and Jesus is so excited as he sees her running off. And the disciples going, why does he even care? What does he care about this woman? Hey, Jesus, we got some lunch. We got some food. And he's like, food? What? Do y'all see what's happening here? Do y'all recognize that a life just got changed right in front of your very eyes? Do y'all even see that? He says in John chapter 4 and verse 35, I tell you, open your eyes and look. Look at the fields, they're ripe for harvest. Look, pay attention. See the opportunities right in front of you to help someone, to serve someone, to share your faith with somebody. Pay attention to what God puts in front of you. That's what I need to start doing. Just paying more attention. And then when I see the opportunity, I need to be intentional about doing something with that opportunity. I need to deliberately take action. I need to intentionally engage with that person. And that means sometimes that I have to get out of my comfort zone. That means sometimes I have to put something else on hold because I need to take care of this person. I'm not doing this out of a sense of guilt or out of a sense of obligation. I'm being intentionally concerned. I am choosing to have a heart for this person, to value them. I'm communicating to this person with my actions. I value you. You mean something to me. I have a heart for you. So I'm going to help you. I'm going to serve you. I'm going to talk with you. I'm going to connect with you. I'm going to invite you. I'm going to bless you in some way. Paul says in Galatians chapter 6 and verse 10, therefore, as we have opportunity, the opportunities are going to be in front of us if we pay attention, right? We've prayed for a heart for people. We're paying attention to opportunities. Paul says, you're going to have opportunities. As we have opportunity, let us do good to which people? This is one of your opportunities to speak out loud during church. So let me start over. As we have opportunity, let us do good to which people? All people. Now he says, especially to your church family. That's a good place to start. But let us do good to which people? All people. There's no loopholes there. There's no stipulations. There's no do good to all the people that you get along with. Do good to all the people that look kind of similar to you. Kind of have the same place in life that you do. Do good to all the people that have the same skin color as you, that have the same lifestyle choices as you. Do good to those people. That's not what Paul says. When the opportunity presents itself and I have paid attention and I see it and I've taken the focus off of myself and I'm looking into the lives of the people around me, when that opportunity to help, to do something, to have a heart for someone presents itself, then do something for that person no matter what. Be intentional about that. And the last thing is, to help me have a heart for people, I need to choose to believe. I need to believe that God cares about that person. I need to believe that He wants me to care about that person. That if that person matters to Him, that person should matter to me. I need to believe that He put that opportunity in front of me for a reason. I need to believe that He's given me gifts and abilities and talents to use for a reason and a purpose. I need to believe that it means something, that it makes a difference if I take action somehow, some way in that person's life. Going back again to Mark chapter 12. Later on, we talked about Jesus giving these commands, loving God and loving other people. And later on, he goes to the temple, the church building, and there's people going by and putting money in the collection box. And he sees this widow woman who has no one in her life, has no real means to support herself, come to that box and drop in 2 coins. That we find out later was all the money that, as far as we know, all the money she had. 2 coins. There's other people dropping bags of coins into the box. There's other people that are bringing a whole bunch of silver or gold out and kind of shaking a little bit so everybody will see how much it is. I shall donate this amount of money to the temple. And kind of focusing on themselves. This one takes these 2 coins that probably everybody else thinks is not going to make a whole lot of difference. Jesus calls his disciples together in Mark chapter 12, verse 43, and says, truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. Why? Not just because she gave all she had. I mean, he said it. She's given all she had. But it's the faith that she gave it with. Because in her mind and with her faith, she thought these 2 coins are going to make a difference. Even if nobody else thought that, she believed it. And it did make a difference. The creator of the universe saw it and did something with it. And if I will believe that, about my actions, about the way that I choose to serve and help and invite and bless other people, God's going to do something with that. But if I'm going to have a heart for other people, I have to believe that it's going to make a difference. I need to ask for that heart for other people. I need to pay attention when God gives me opportunities to demonstrate that heart. I need to be intentional about taking action. And I need to choose to believe that God's going to do something with that when I do take action. I'm going to wrap up this morning. Again, I hope we wrestle with this question today. And not just here as we're wrapping up worship time, because we need to be done. I hope it's something that we kind of think on later on today. Maybe through this week. Maybe asking ourselves when we're sitting in our cubicle at work. When we're sitting at our kids' ball game. How much do I value the people that I'm interacting with? How much do they mean to me? I recognize how much they mean to my God. How much do they mean to me? I have a couple of goals personally for the Flagstone family in 2025. I have a couple of goals for us. I hope I have a goal for us as a church family, for all of us as a church family, just to be in a better habit of volunteering this year. Not just here at Flagstone, but in our communities. When we have an opportunity to help and to serve and to sign up and to be a part of something, that all of us collectively have a heart for that and want to do that and get in a better habit of that. I have a goal for us as a church family to be in a better habit of inviting people to Sunday morning church, to a Bible study, to our connection group, to some event that we're hosting, to just watching some of our content online. That we together would recognize there's good stuff that God is doing in this church family. And I value this church family, and I see the way that this church family can bless the lives of other people. I want to invite other people into that. That's a couple of goals that I have for our church family. But the reason that I have those goals, the reason that I want that for the Flagstone family is this. I want us first and foremost to have a heart for God. And to have a heart for the things that He has a heart for. And my God has a heart for people. So I want that for us too. I want that for us too. So we're going to stand up here in just a second and we're going to sing a song together. And it's a beautiful song. You've probably heard it on the radio. We sung it here multiple times. And it's a song that describes the kind of love that our God has, not just for the saved, but for the unsaved. Not just for the church, but the unchurched. Not just for the people that are connected to Him, but the people that are disconnected. He has a passion for them. And I want to have that kind of passion too. I want to care about other people the way that He does. So as we sing this song together this morning, if you have never experienced the reckless love of our God for yourself, then I would invite you to come to the front and say, I'm ready to have a relationship and connection with Him in my life. I'm ready to feel that love that He has for me. And we will help make that happen. If there's been a time in your life when you experienced that love, you know what it's like to be connected to our God in that way, and you've walked away from it for whatever reason, for however long, however many times you've walked away and come back again, doesn't matter. If you want to be reconnected to Him and you want this church family to help, come to the front and tell us that when we're singing the song together. But I would also invite you, if you don't move a step from where you're standing when we sing together, to be thankful, first of all, for the reckless love that our God has for you. Just to be thankful for it, because He loves you that much. But then to also ask yourself, do I have that kind of love for the people in my life, for the people that I come into contact with? And if not, can that start to change today? If this church family can help on that journey, we want to. So let us know how while together we stand and sing.
Before I spoke a word, you